Welcome to Animind, an anime podcast where we nerd out about all things anime and dive deeply into the storytelling art form while dissecting the psychological aspects that it speaks to. I'm your co-host, Matthew Basil.
I'm your co-host, Danny Ari.
And I'm your co-host, Graham Pugh.
On this episode 9, we'll be discussing the TV series, the anime series, Fruits Basket, which is, we're going to be concentrating on the 2019 version because I know there was an earlier version, but we're going to concentrate on the most recent adaptation that they did of this manga, Fruits Basket, started in 2019 and I think is finishing up this year, right?
I think it just finished, or if it hasn't just finished, then it's finishing.
Okay, as you can tell, I've not made it through the entire series, so but we'll be discussing Fruits Basket. I'm new to anime, so this was kind of the first. What is this genre? It's called like
Slice
a romance.
Of life.
Slice of life. Okay, because it has a. For those of you not familiar with the show, we'll keep it pretty spoiler free, but just to give everyone the general gist of it, it's basically about this orphan young girl named Tohuru, right?
Toru,
okay.
Yeah.
Toru. I'm getting better. I'm getting closer. Toru, who it gets adopted by this kind of this family, this clan of people who change into animals of the Chinese zodiac when they get hugged by the opposite sex of someone that's not, part of this family curse
or if they're weakened, I think is the other stipulation.
Yes. Or if they're weakened by like a cold or something like that really, knocks the wind out of them. So, yeah, it's got a little bit of a fantasy element, but definitely a slice of life. We talked about this a little bit in the Spirited Away episode. I mean, I like stories that don't have a traditional kind of hero beats up the villain, saves the day mentality. I don't even think, there's people that are, I guess, scheming or very hurt that, do present obstacles. But, there's no, villain, at least, from the episodes I had seen. So I thought that was kind of really, really an interesting take on it. I know, Graham, this was, I think, I know Danny's been a fan of the manga. Graham, this was your first foray into it for the show, too? What did you think of it? Then we'll get Danny, obviously, who knows loves it.
Yes.
I knew of it since I was 12 years old. But that was only because there was someone I went to school with who sat at my desk in another class, and she accidentally left one of her volumes of Fruits Basket under my desk. And when I finished my work, I was fiddling around down there, and I found it. I'm like, what's this? And I started reading it, but I didn't get much further than that, apart from getting back into it today. But I liked it. I like slice of life anime. I don't usually watch a whole lot of oh, look at all these boys, all these cute boys, and there's the one girl and pick your flavor kind of shows.
The reverse harem anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Oren Host Club and stuff like that.
I love Oren Host Club, and I want to do an episode on it at one point.
Of course. That's the least surprising thing I've heard. But I'm kind of a sucker for sweet, cute things and stuff. I'm Toru is so infectiously lovable and sweet. I'm she's just no, it's okay. I can live in this tent all in the woods on my own. I'm fine. And then she's just let me cook for everyone. Let me go buy this food for this replacement meal that this chick who I just met, who's kind of mean to me, just ruined, and I'll help her cook it all. Yeah, she's incredibly selfless and just pure and innocent and caring.
So you like it then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's very cute, and like Matthew was saying, there's not a lot of conflict. It's sometimes there's crappy stuff that happens, oh, these relatives kind of suck on this side of the family or whatever. Or, oh no, I can't find this picture of my mom. It got buried under this landslide and stuff like that. But it's always I don't know. It's not a constant, overwhelming sense of dread or anything.
Yes,
it's
I've always liked this anime because it's nice at the end of a day, like where you don't want to have to stress out, like Attack on Titan or something that's like kind of intense and you're kind of worried about characters dying all over the place, you know? But this.
I thought you were saying it's not. It's like Attack on Titan.
Oh, God.
At the
No.
end of the day, like, what are you talking about?
I like to call them feel-good animes because, like, if I'm having a bad day or really stressed out, it cheers me up a lot. Before I get into why I like this anime, I want to start playing a game where you guys try to determine who my favorite character is without me giving any hints. So, Matt, what do you think my favorite character is?
I'm still going with Kaio, actually. Kyo, sorry. He's still going to get my vote. You know, he's the character. You know, we're not spoiling anything because I think it's revealed like the first or second episode. You know, I mean, he's the cat in the Chinese zodiac, which actually, for those of you like me who are very familiar with the Chinese zodiac, there is no cat in there, but there's apparently a folktale or legend that there is no cat because the rat cheated him and tricked him basically into not coming to the banquet to be part of the zodiac. So he was left out. So that's because Kaio's a rat, because he's kind of this hot-headed but sweet underneath, misunderstood character. I'm going with him. He was probably my second favorite, actually, personally as well. Outside of, I just loved what's her name? The Kaguru, who's the boar. Maybe I liked her because I'm a boar too.
Kogura. Kogura? Is it Kagura?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mispronounce a lot.
Yes. Yeah. I actually don't like her character at all. But
yeah, I know a lot of people don't, and she does come across. It would come across as being, I guess, like abusive.
She's not only abusive, I guess, but she's abrasive. She's just, I feel like she could be lovable, but she just comes off really overwhelming.
Well, because the nice thing about the series that I saw from just, like I said, what I know about the Chinese zodiac and remember about it when I used to be very knowledgeable about it, is that they make the characters who are the animals have attributes of those animals, of that calendar, and a lot of times to exaggerated deficits, or they go to what their deficits are in that personality trait. And the boar is very passionate, so Kaguro is constantly like getting upset and emotional and, just basically kicking Kaio's butt all around.
Kyo, but yeah.
Kyo's butt all around. But I like her probably first, and then I like Kyo second. So, but I think Kyo is your kind of favorite. So that's who I'm going with.
Okay, now what do you think, Graham?
I'm in the same boat, but I'm also having kind of second thoughts because I'm also kind of thinking that that you would also lean towards Yuki because he's like the pretty boy, and I don't know. It's either one of those two. I know it's like those.
Oh, the two main male characters. It could be one of the two. You think?
I mean, there's that. I also think you probably have a soft spot for Momiji.
I love Momiji, but that's not my favorite. Momiji reminds me a lot of Honey Senpai from Oran House Club. And I'm pretty sure they have the same voice actor in the original anime.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
So, my favorite character is Kyo. Because, when I first read it when I was younger, I liked Yuki because he was like the pretty boy. But I was like 12.
Right.
But once I turned I think more into my teenage years, I really understood Kyo because we start to learn about how people use these defense mechanisms to protect themselves, to keep themselves from getting hurt. And I'm very similar in that way. I come off as kind of abrasive myself because I have these like walls put up so that I'm not overstraining my relationships. I'm always worried. I don't want to be a bother, So I like Kyo because he comes off as this really abrasive, very angry kind of attitude boy, this
Tsundere.
yeah.
I think in the second episode when when Toru's out in the woods and she's like, "Oh no, Kyo hates me and the cat's my favorite and I finally got to meet the cat and he hates me and then he's like, "Hey, I don't hate you or anything, but whatever." And he beats around the bush around it and he's not I don't know, he's just kind of gruff about it, but you see that he clearly cares, but he tries to cover it up.
I love his character. Okay, so I watched the original anime and I watched this one, and I think they are a lot more obvious with how he gets angry, but then he blushes a little bit, or he gets upset, but he feels bad about it. It's obvious with the way he's drawn, the way his voice actor conveys, at least in the English dub. Just he's like, oh, I feel bad, crap, sorry, it's so hard for him to apologize. He's got pride. The newest one, it's just so obvious with all of that, and I found it a lot more similar to the manga in that respect. So I really appreciate Kyo's character, and I love their connection and character development. Like I've always said, is my favorite thing, and Kyo's character development is one of my favorite in the entire series. So absolutely,
he is a very complex character, which I was surprised at a little bit, just because I expected, Toru is kind of really the main character, but it's kind of her empathy that heals all these other characters in this, so it's that's why it's said, it's kind of weird, because she's almost the hero that heals everybody else in this story who's just going through so much hurt, and like I said, has the worst aspects of a lot of these personalities in the Chinese zodiac. Like I said, for those of you who are familiar with it, every person, the Chinese zodiac based on each year as an animal, and it's a different personality, and each personality, if you read the Chinese zodiac, has attributes and strengths and everything like that, and then they kind of have deficits. For instance, the boar is very giving and very caring and all that, but can be short-tempered when they're pushed too far. They can be overindulgent. They can be clingy, which is like I said, why Kaguro, at least for me, I was like, oh yeah, I understand what you're doing. I was like, all right, well, that's just an over exaggeration of the boar personality. But Toru's empathy helps heal them all, and Kaio, though, has so much hurt. I was like, oh, that's so good to see, and so interesting that he really pulled me in. Now I have to ask Graham, because we all revealed our favorite character. What is your favorite character? What you saw?
Going against the current here when I say this, I think, but Toru, like I said earlier, because she is so sweet and innocent and precious and selfless, I really like her a lot. And one character who I want to see more of, just because he kind of falls in the background a lot and isn't as dynamic, at least from what I have seen so far, is Shigure.
I love Shigure. He's my second favorite character.
I figured that you would probably like him too.
Except now that I'm an adult, he's like daddy now. I feel like I never felt that way when I was younger. I was like, he's kind of he's too responsible, and he's always so worried about what everybody's doing. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I'm into it.
I love the fact that when I was first watching this, the first couple episodes, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, what is this guy? I was like, I wish I had this guy's job. This guy, he just sits around a kimono all day and reads the paper and eats. And then literally after I thought that, 2 episodes later, he's like, oh yeah, I'm a writer. I'm like, yes, I picked the right profession after all.
Right? No, yeah, exactly.
You know what other character because I liked all the characters, in all honesty. There wasn't really a character I didn't like. But I gotta say a shout out to, while we're doing favorite characters here, I want to see the spinoff with I'm gonna probably butcher their names here, Arisa and Saki, Tahura's two best friends.
Check girl. Check girl.
I love those characters. I want to see the spinoff with them. I don't know, they got to be battling the gods of the Western Zodiac or something. I don't know. Someone write that. Not I'm going to.
Right? One of the things that I really appreciated about this anime and the manga is that it follows the same vibe as it's the misfits. It's the people who are finding found family. And I've always had a soft spot for those. And they're finding camaraderie in their struggles, and there's so many parallels between the characters and what they're going through, even if it's like a completely different struggle. So you hear stuff that's like, oh, like I'm not being accepted, and there's different characters worrying about the same things, and it's the whole grass is greener on the other side. And it's, I don't know, I really appreciate the idea that everybody has their own strengths and everybody is lovable for their own reasons. Like, I was always a big fan of the, why do you need to be beautiful like them when you're beautiful like you? So it's the whole idea of, you are strong, but strong doesn't have to be physically. Strong can be emotionally. Strong can be like supportive. Strong can be loving. Strong can be so many things. And I think this anime is a really good representation of different ways that you can be strong.
I think it might be like episode 3, maybe 4, when Toru talks to Kyo and Yuki at different times individually, and then they both are talking about that. Like, Yuki gets all down. He's like, I feel like I'm stuck in this structure that I can't get out of because I'm part of the Soma clan and I have to do everything that they say. And Kyo thinks the opposite, and they both don't realize the pros and cons to both.
One of the things that you just mentioned, I actually had written down because both Yuki and Hattori refer to their lives as being like in a cage because of this curse, this thing that Toru is absolutely, she's in love with. I love that you guys are so different and you're so quirky and you have all this magic about you guys. And they're like, why would you want this? This is a curse. It's like I'm in a cage. And it's that whole idea of, you don't really know somebody's struggles. Everybody struggles differently. But the fact that they both are paralleled in that respect there, I thought was really interesting. And that also, there's a conversation between Kyo and Toru, where it's also the whole idea of the plum on the back. Like, you can't see what's so great about you because it's on your back. And you always see the backs of everybody else, and they're all rice balls with plum on their back, and everybody's got these different colors and different flavors, but they're all unique and beautiful, and you're just sitting there, oh, I'm just a rice ball, I'm so plain, when it turns out you just can't see the plum on your back. And I think that's such a sweet analogy, and that's a great little conversation between the two of them that it's probably one of my favorite parts in the first season.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite scene I've seen so far, and I think that was the scene that I was talking about where Yuki's all like, man, this kind of sucks, and this is slightly unrelated to it, but right before he started getting deep into it, I'm like, oh, like when it just shows him walking on the bridge and he's in his little rat form and he's like walking on 2 legs and looking so sad, I cracked
Adorable.
up. So he's a sad little rat. But I was like, because at this point he hasn't been very vulnerable. It's like, and we haven't really seen a lot of his thoughts. He's usually the cool, reserved one who looks like he's got it all together. And then when he just kind of opened up like that, I'm like, oh.
Well, that's exactly why you hear Kyo say, I can't magically make myself more like him, but I would if I could. And it's funny because you see into both of their heads at one point, and they both wish they were more like the other, because one's outgoing and not scared to talk to everybody. He wants to be liked. He wants to be around people. And then one is stressed out. He feels like he can't be himself. He has this facade. He's got this mask on all the time. And there's a point where later on, Toru's like, I think that's the first time I've actually seen him smile. I hope he can smile like that one day at school too. Like, she just wants him to be comfortable with himself and be able to be comfortable outwardly, you know, instead of having this mask up at school all the time to be the perfect boy, you know, this perfect popular guy. And Kyo and Yuki are both like, I always say this, but they're like yin and yang. They're the opposites, and they have a strength that the other doesn't, and they just see each other, and they're kind of bitter to each other. And you realize that, oh, it's because they're kind of jealous of each other. They don't say it out loud, but there's things that they both wish they were more like the other in some respect.
Kyo much more so than Yuki, because partially just because of Kyo's very abrasive, outgoing, hot-headed personality, and because he's like, I have to prove myself because I can't get into the clan, so I have to at least beat him in a fight, and then he just effortlessly gets his butt kicked all the time. But Kyo's like, at the beginning of the show when he first shows up, he's like, I was away training for 4 months, and then like he gets his butt kicked like none of that training ever happened. And he's always just very outwardly like I'm gonna beat you, or I gotta be better than you. And Yuki outwardly is just very dismissive of it all. But then like when he lets that wall down, he's like, man, it comes so easy for him to be outgoing and to make friends, and I can't do that.
One of the things I really wanted to talk about, this is kind of a good segue, is the relationship between Kyo and Yuki. In their heads, they have these reservations and they have these jealousies or whatever, but they're kind of, it's way more obvious in this anime than the original, but Yuki's kind of a jerk to Kyo. He's just like, you dumb cat, and you don't belong here. Nobody wants you here. And he's just kind of really bitter about it. There's a scene where Kyo turns into a cat, and he asks Yuki, he's like, aren't you going to kick me? Because he's all like upset, and he's used to getting beat up by Yuki. And he's like, sometimes not getting kicked hurts worse. And I was like, ooh. And even my roommate was like, ouch, because you expect the kick. And that's the worst part, is that you realize that you're expecting the kick. You're used to it. And I think that's kind of what he was getting at. Like, you're used to it. And I think that's worse.
I also took that partially as if he just kicked him, it would seem as lashing out. And the fact that he is so like controlled.
Your cat is talking.
I know she's in heat, so she's very noisy right now.
Oh,
and
no.
Here, Missy, please.
Oh, geez.
But the fact that like it seems so much more controlled when he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. He's like, I'm just looking down at you, but like I'm very aware of it and I'm very in control. Whereas if I beat you up, it would seem as kind of like me lashing out emotionally. That is like an extra sting where it's like, ooh, he knows how much it sucks. And he's just like, I'm not going to do it. He's like, the fact that you already expect me to kick your butt is just goes to show that like, you already know that I'm better than you, or you think of yourself that lowly. And he's just like,
Yeah, I felt very bad for Kyo, right? Am I saying that right? No, Kyo. I felt very bad for Kyo during the first season. Again, we don't want to really go into spoilers, but it was just like everybody was like piling on this. I guess because he's the cat, so he's kind of like said the outcast or the scapegoat of this.
Yeah, he's the reject.
The reject of the Zodiac family, which is again why I thought, Danny, you would kind of gravitate towards him.
Yeah.
Because I was gravitating towards him. I don't know how you could. I mean, everybody was like annoying cat. I mean, he's a hothead, but I mean, I was like, yeah, okay, so stop picking on him.
But that's like his defense mechanism, you know. That's how he handles it. He's like, well, everyone's gonna pick on me anyway. I got to be strong and tough and you know. You
understand why, like you said, Yuki has that animosity to some degree. I mean, you understand the hurt behind him, but that's what I'm saying. It's such a showcase of empathy, I think, and throughout this entire series, because you know a lot of the people are going after Kyo because he does reflect something that they don't see in themselves, or that they feel bitter about, or want to prove themselves towards. And when they kind of like start looking at not only how he feels, but how, what they really are feeling underneath. A lot of those resolutions resolve. That's why, Toru, there you go. See, I'm getting these names. Toru is such a symbol of like compassion and just unconditional love, really, who you could understand why, because her mother, my God, her mother must be like mother of the year. The flashbacks that we get of her mother, and when she says, "Oh, my mother used to always say this," I'm like, wow, like your mother should just give a parenting course to every single parent in the world.
Yeah, she's actually one of the characters I wanted to talk about. Even though she's not an active character, she's shaped Toru like so much to make her such a great girl, like you hear all of these things in flashbacks, and there's a spot where there's a big thing that happens, and basically, well, I guess it's the first episode, so I guess I can spoil it. There's a landslide that destroys the little tent she was living in. And she's like, well, I wish it wouldn't have happened, but it could have been worse. I'm like, that's your home. That's everything you own. And it could have been, you could have been inside, but she's just like, yeah, it sucks. But yeah, she's just overwhelmingly positive. Even Yuki's like, I wouldn't have guessed that she's been through so much. Because much like Kyo, there's this whole I'm defensive because I've been dealt this crappy hand. But Toru's lost everyone, and who she does have, they aren't close. And so she's basically on her own except for her friends, and she's not bitter. So she's that other side of the coin where she's been dealt this crap hand, but she doesn't let it turn her sour. I think that's a really good representation of a couple different ways that we can handle stress and when life kind of goes hard on us, One of the things that she says, she goes, Mom always told me that only bad people spill secrets that have been entrusted to them. Like, that's one of the main things that kind of makes her realize that I'm not a bad person. I would never tell somebody's secret, even if it's super exciting and I want to tell my girlfriends, like, I'm not going to because only bad people do that, And it's just, she's just so easy to trust. And that's, I guess, why they're just like, oh, well, she probably shouldn't know our secret, but she just seems so pure.
She is like I said, just such a good role model. Like, it's just like this very compassionate person. And she brings out, this empathy in her life that she carries through. And it like I said, it heals this family that just seems to, at least again, from what I saw, having not seen the entire series or read the manga or anything, but from what I saw, it seemed like this very dysfunctional family here that has dealing with a lot of, I guess, skeletons in their closet and a lot of thinking the grass is greener, when they look at another member, and kind of hurt that they've gone through because of the curse. And she just brings this empathy to it that just shines a light in it. That's why you said it, I think it was you, Danny, or maybe it was Graham, it said at the beginning, it's just such a light one to kind of watch, like before you go to bed. Oh, okay, I feel uplifted now. I feel good. Most of them, I think, end on a good upbeat note pretty much. And it's just like, oh, okay, like, yeah, this is like a good moral lesson.
So speaking of moral lessons, there's a theme that kind of goes through that first season, at least in this newer anime, because I haven't gone past the first season, but it's the whole idea of getting out there and being yourself. And I think it's really important. Like, one of the reasons Shigure has always been like one of my favorite characters is because he's this voice of reason. And there's a conversation that he has with Kyo, because Kyo's like so scared to open up, so scared to show weakness. And he basically says to just get out there, socialize, just do it, because it's okay to be bad at it. It's okay to practice this socializing. Everybody's got to start somewhere. You might hurt somebody and someone might hurt you, and that sucks, but that's how we learn. And I think as an adult, it's something that you learn as well, because it's the kind of situation where you're learning that everybody has a starting point. There's always a point that it's scary. It's whether it's when you're a child or an adult, there's always going to be some sort of fear in getting rejected. But you're not going to know until you try. And that's kind of a turning point where Kyo's like, okay, I got to at least try. I got to start practicing socializing, try practicing being a person, you know? And I think that's one of my favorite conversations between Shigure and I think anybody is just, it kind of pulls throughout that whole season.
The line is, I believe, getting hurt by people and hurting them is how you learn true love, I believe was that conversation.
Yeah.
Which is written down on my notes. Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines. My other favorite one, it's okay to be selfish once in a while, but if it was every day, that would piss me off. I was like, wow, those are two things to like live by, those two lines there. Because
yeah. Toru's mom says it too. She says it, and so does Kyo.
Yeah. And it's I think Kyo adds the piss off, which I love I love that end. If it was every day, that would piss me off. But because it's true. Both of those lines are true for social interactions and how we exist, because we're going to, you don't want to actively go out there and try to hurt people. But I mean, someone's reactions to you and someone's emotions are their own responsibility at the end of the day. So that's just how you learn how to gauge and everything like that. You're going to hurt people by speaking your truth, being who you are. We've talked about that a lot in this series so far, at least this season. And they're going to hurt you by speaking their truth. But I mean, that's how you learn who you truly are. That's how you learn true love. That's how you learn compassion and empathy, by understanding that, well, your truth is not mine, but I can understand that that's how you feel, even though I don't agree with it, or I don't necessarily feel that way. And it's okay to be selfish once in a while, but every day would piss me off. I mean, you do have to have that self. I think I mentioned it in the Spirited Away, one of the episodes. I think we mentioned it, where you need to keep yourself protected. You do have to be selfish sometimes. Even they're talking to Toru when they say that. I mean, even someone like Toru can't be empathetic and compassionate to everybody all the time. She has to look out for herself. Otherwise, she'll go through compassion fatigue, and it will just end up actually hurting the people around her and herself more so. So you do have to do it, just not all the time,
Right. It's everything in moderation, and something that they kind of explained to her, because she is so giving. She is so selfless. Like, you need to take a step back, because not everybody can be so selfless all the time. It's not healthy. You need to look out for yourself too. I mean, we're looking out for you as well, but just take care of yourself a little bit. And I think that's a really good takeaway from this show. And in that same vein, from like a situation that she remembers back from her mom talking to her. And another one is a quote, and it's one of my favorite quotes. She says, "I want you to believe in people. Doubting is easy." So she sees the best in everyone, because her mom taught her that, it's really easy to see people's flaws. It's really easy to see the bad and to think the worst. It's hard to believe in people, but if that's your go-to, if that's your automatic spot in life when you meet somebody, if they don't give you a reason not to, I wish I had taken that type of view in life, because I was the opposite. Like I said, I have all these walls up, and I'm always very careful about who I hitch my train to in terms of friendship, because people can be crappy. But I really appreciate Toru's character, because she's just so trusting, and it's scary trusting people like that, because it's so easy to get hurt. But that's just her nature. That's just who she is. And even when she's hurt, she's like, well, at least I trusted them. So, at least I trusted them, and they shouldn't have been, than to not trust them when they should have been.
Like we were saying earlier, that she's such a good role model, especially like you said, Danny, and like how in your experience, it was hard to be that trusting of people, and how it's so easy to doubt them and kind of lose faith in people. And that, and her unwavering positivity and caring for people, just makes her like a great character and someone to kind of aspire to be like.
And she's authentic too, and that's I think that's the important aspect. She's authentic in her compassion, and she's authentic in her trust, and empathy. She's not doing it to earn somebody's love or affection. She's not doing it because she's scared or she needs their approval. It's just a very genuine empathy, and that's what makes it so powerful that she's able to do that, because it can be hard, like you said, to do that. It can be hard to open yourself up that way, to be that authentic. Some of us have needs that prevent us maybe from being that authentic, and that's what I think she sees in the Somo clan. These people could be like her, but they just are so wounded. They have so many needs that they need that kind of first aid empathy first.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
And then kind of segueing from that and the whole doubting people and believing in people, I really appreciate that vein of logic, but then you see the other side where Yuki's told at a very young age, he goes, am I really so strange that I have to hide who I am? And Akito, the head of the household, he's like, yes, you are. Obviously, no one would understand this. People would be sickened by you. You would be utterly alone. Do you want that? It's instilling this fear at a young age of rejection. And it's so awful because I think that's why Kyo and Yuki are so different, because Kyo wasn't in the main part of the family. He wasn't directly having these kind of conversations. So he's just unabashedly himself. Where there's Yuki, who is told at a young age, you have to be somebody else. You have to have that facade. You have to be, what everyone wants you to be. Otherwise, you're going to be alone. You're going to be by yourself, and nobody wants that. So that fear of rejection is carried throughout into his high school years, and that's where we see him.
I can't remember if I'm recalling this right, but doesn't like Toru give him a hug or something, and then he's just so taken aback where he's like, wait, what? Or like she does something that like just throws him off so much because he was just remembering the words that Akito was saying, like, people aren't going to understand you. They're going to think you're a freak or whatever. And then he's like, wait, what?
Yes. As you're seeing that flashback, it's kind of going back and forth between Toru in front of him that's so pure and so accepting. And she's like, I'm just thankful to know you. I don't even care if something bad happens to me. I'm just glad I got to know you. And she knows the real him. And that's what's so powerful, because he's remembering a time when he was a kid, and what he's believed his whole life is you're going to get rejected. If anyone knows the real you, you're going to be hated. You're going to be by yourself forever. And when you think about it, I feel like that's Akito's way of keeps them close to him, because he's like, well, you're going to have to depend on me because I'm the only one who can see you this way. You know, it's this power move. And it's so manipulative.
You see that, unfortunately, a lot of times, narcissistic personality. They tell other people, no one's going to accept you, to keep, them close because they have such low self-esteem and they have, so many problems and fears of abandonment and stuff like that. So you could definitely pop psychoanalyze that. And like I said, unfortunately, you don't have to turn into a rat or a cow or, or something like that to see that in real life, that situation. And it goes back again. For those who are regular listeners here, you're probably getting, I don't know if you're getting a little tired of it or not, but again, you got to be your unique self, as we've said, pretty much in every episode. That's Yuki's kind of burden, and a lot of their burdens there is that they can't, they feel closed off for this fully intimate relationship because there's this part of themselves that they have to hide. Literally, they can't be hugged. They can't be hugged by someone of the opposite sex. Even barring that, it's still, they can't show this part of themselves. They can't show themselves fully. There's a part of themselves they always need to keep hidden. So that's a barring of intimacy. And when you block off part of yourself, you block off intimacy, and when you block off human connection, which is I think another big theme of the series, you end up getting a chip on your shoulder. You end up kind of with some pain that you're carrying around that festers, and that's what a lot of these characters, I think, are dealing with in their own way. There's also a theme, obviously, in here, like you mentioned, Danny, too, of found family and being kind of alone. Especially with the non-Somo clan, who's kind of, I find it funny, and it rung true for me that the Somo clan is kind of under such a tight thumb, even though they have this huge clan. They have these, rituals and parties and get-togethers that they go with, but they're kind of, a lot of them are feeling very chafed under this large family that they have to follow certain rituals and respect for. And then there's Toru and her two friends, Arisa and Saki, who are kind of finding the found family amongst the three of them. They don't, especially Toru literally does not have a family. But then, Arisa and Saki say, oh, well, she's our family. We kind of had this, kind of tough, they have this tough background they eventually go into and all that. So, they kind of look towards the three of them to a surrogate family to support each other emotionally. And I found it very interesting that the Somos, who have this large, extensive family, kind of are so lost, and then those three who have the found family and had such a rough background and really don't have a lot of people that they can truly lean on, tend to be, I thought, were a little better adjusted, actually.
Yeah, I agree. Something that I really appreciated was that these aren't her real sisters or any type of real blood family, but they are so protective. They're like, where has she been? How is she doing over there? They don't know initially that she goes and stays with the Somas. So when they find out, they feel like they've neglected their duty as her friends / family. Like, we didn't even know she lost her home. We need to immediately find out what this household's about. And they interrogate them like a father or a mother would with a new boyfriend or a new housemate or something, just so protective and just, well, we're keeping our eye on you. And I really appreciate their relationship with Toru.
Yeah, it's a very endearing relationship because Toru is so alone in the fact that she doesn't have a family, but seems to be so surrounded by people who do care for her. And that's, I guess, maybe the reward for her being so empathetic and compassionate, such a good person. But she does have people who care about her, which I found very endearing. Like I said, the Somo clan could almost be a little bit toxic in the family community atmosphere. And that's what I was kind of saying, that those three women, it was kind of what family, I think, ideally should be. It should be, that hey, we don't know this family, but we're going to look out for you. They seem like good people. You seem happy. All right, then we're going to, allow you to do your thing. Whereas the Somo clan is very, like, everyone's in each other's business. And like you said, Akito, is that the?
Yeah, Akito.
Akita, who's the head, kind of keeps everybody tightly around, and kind of, oh well, no one else, so you gotta stay within the family. No one else is gonna accept you. And that's, like you said, a very toxic thing that I've actually have encountered, and can be very damaging to your self-esteem. Don't trust anyone outside the family. So, you see that in like mob movies and stuff like that. And so this was kind of a nice counter to that. That, well, you can, we go back to trust. You can open up that trust window and trust people to be good, outside the family. And when you do, you find a lot of empathy, a lot of caring, a lot of love. So that's why this series is such a heartwarming, enthusiastic, and inspiring. It just is so feel good. Like I said, if you're looking for an anime series to just, like I said, put on before you go to bed, or just put on because you're in a funk mood, it's, I think, really a good one for that. It's well done as well, I think. I didn't see anything that struck out at me in particular. I don't know, Danny, like I said, or Graham, if you picked up anything. I mean, I think it's well done as far as artistically it goes, but I didn't, nothing struck out at me per se, like some of the others that we've seen, especially me being new to anime. I've seen stuff that was like, oh, that's really cool how they did that. Oh, that's a really neat idea. Oh, wow, that's, something I haven't seen before, or, that's really beautiful how they use that color palette. But it's just the intro, I will say, is very, it's the intro, at least for the first season that I saw, was very kind of, they had slow motion and these like glistening glows as they on the characters' faces.
That's actually very common in slice of life anime.
Okay.
The intro is very like glistening and beautified and yeah, it's very common across slice of life anime.
That was the one that I picked up. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. Like, I think it's the outro or something like that. It's just all of them like lazily like sitting under a tree, like snoozing. I was like, this is like so like that's such a good way to go out. Okay.
I appreciate it because it's not so over the top like a lot of animes are, so fantastical that it's unbelievable that it could ever happen in our lives, and it's not relatable at all when it comes to there's giants or there's wizards or pterodactyls, like it's a family hiding an aspect of themselves due to a curse, and if you really think about it, that could happen to anybody. And I think that's what makes it so good, is that, and that's what makes it a slice of life anime, is that it's literally just a slice of life. It could be anybody's life, this happening. It's feminine targeted, for the girl. I'm gonna say the heterosexual girl. But I appreciate it a lot because it is feel good, and I don't feel like stressed out when I watch it. So definitely something to watch before bed, or when you're stressed, or when you just want to turn your brain off for a little bit. And I would recommend this for especially like younger generation, definitely, because I feel like there's a lot of targeted issues that have to do with being accepted and learning to be yourself, like especially like more so than a lot of the others we've covered, because I know those issues have come up in others, but it's so targeted to like high schoolers that I was very thankful that I saw this when I was the original, but I saw this when I was middle school, and I wish this newer version, because I feel like it targets those a lot more clearly, and it follows the manga a lot better. So I wish that had been the one that came out in 2001.
It's just real good stuff. I haven't really thought about it until Danny said it. This is something that could happen in real life. Oh, it's just a family and they've got this secret. And I was like, oh, when you put it like that, that is pretty good. And then like all the things with acceptance and being yourself and looking on the positive side of life and having faith in other people. And I think those are good messages, especially for younger people, like you were saying, Danny.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Graham. Actually, it didn't even hit me, but yeah, I mean, it's really if you don't reveal what the secret is, if you take that out of the context, it could really, I mean, and obviously the fantasy element of turning into an animal. If you take that out of the show, the show still works as a, like you said, perfectly an example of a family that has some kind of thing hidden and has kind of a paradigm set up that's very narcissistic and toxic, because it keeps the people like very closed off within the family, which, like I said, does happen out there. That sometimes we end up in this kind of situation where we don't trust people outside our immediate family, or we end up as a certain family member that kind of is very, self-centered or has some issues of their own, and they keep everybody, kind of tight-lid on everybody. And then, that ends up setting up self-esteem issues, and like Yuki's, fear that he can't be himself and he has to live up to a certain expectation, and he's hard on himself, or you feel like you're, an outcast, or, those things can easily be applied to real life, families. So that's a great way of playing it. And I do agree. It also, I mean, I'm 38-year-old heterosexual male. I still got something out of it, but I could definitely see that if you're, a young teenager, you would probably relate a lot more to it. It definitely has. Obviously, it's a teenage girl with like two boys basically like on either side fighting over her.
The dream.
So, yes, it is the heterosexual teenage girl dream, I guess, in that sense. So,
it's a reverse harem. That's exactly what the actual definition is. The reverse harem, because you've got one main heterosexual girl and you've got all these boys. It's the whole Ornhost Club, all of that same idea, except it's a lot more realistic, I think.
Yeah, and it's done not in a, it's not done in like a overly sexualized way.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. It's made for middle schoolers essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but
it's still so good.
Yes, it is. It is still really, I think, because it does it so well with the empathy and the general themes that's why I was kind of a little bit, because before I started watching this, I'm like, oh boy, hold on here. Is it just going to be her swooning over these two guys fighting over her? And all right, I can deal with it. I'm a sucker for rom-coms. So you thought it was like that. There is more going on here than just a pure kind of teenage heterosexual girl fantasy romance here, having all these guys fighting over you. There's a lot more that's here. There's some heavy subject matters in some of these episodes. I mean, there's like a suicide attempt or Victims of Villains podcast. So, I mean, there's this, I'll have to mention, I mean, there's like, a character that's contemplating suicide or, attempts suicide in the first season. So there's definitely some heavy subject matters here, but done in such a light, lovable way that I think it works so well and is such a broad and uplifting series overall.
One of the things that I did appreciate about it is that, like, even as an adult, even though there are a lot of things that happen and all these stressors that go on, the fact that they're, like you said, they're handled in such a lighthearted way, and there's a good ending. It's every episode ends at like, oh, that feels nice, like that's a good spot. And I think that's why I like it, because you're not held up on, oh, this character just died, how are they gonna handle with that? It's it's one of those things where everything, I don't want to say that there's not overarching issues that go throughout the series, because there definitely is, and there's a couple mysterious things that you don't really find out about till later, and some not so great characters who have connections and that are scheming, and I appreciate that there's still that mystery, that there's still more to wonder about, despite the fact that there's these clean-cut resolutions each episode.
Yeah, it engages you still, even though that's what I liked about it, because I appreciate the binge culture to some degree, in the fact that like some series can do it really well. Some series you can tell they're just baiting you to get onto the next one, and some series just go like too far. I'm not gonna name some shows here because these are not anime shows, but I've seen some shows where I'm just like, oh, really? Like, you just had to throw that in the last 5 minutes, so I'm going to, not now stop watching. This one, like, I think Graham, said it, clean-cut resolutions in it, but still engaging, interesting. You still are like, oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. And that's, to me, makes for a stronger show usually, because you're not relying on the fact that you're dropping a bomb in the last 5 minutes, or you're trying to find the worst stuff to happen to these characters so people are going to be invested and keep turning in. You're just relying on solid storytelling and the love for these characters that the audience is going to attach to make them continue to watch the show, rather than trying to string them along with plot threads and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just such a pleasant show, and all these characters are so likable. Even the least likable characters are like still
Agreed.
very wholesome. I mean, except for, with a few exceptions, but like of the core clan and Toru and the rest of them, they're still all very likable, and it doesn't make it like, oh, I don't want to see them again. Usually it's like, oh, okay, I get to see so and so, and it's not like,
Yes.
oh my god, she's moving back in with who? Oh my god, I'm on the edge of my seat, because that's like, in general, that's not what slice of life is. It is very just like, this is nice, this is pleasant, like I'm just enjoying the ride, instead of being like, whoa, these crazy twists and turns and everything.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
Another thing that I meant to mention earlier that Matthew had said was, at first I was kind of expecting, like, it's like these two boys are fighting over her. He said, oh no, stop, don't fight over me. Like in some series, like in Twilight, it's just kind of like, it's like she didn't have any agency, really, it feels like. And it's just like these boys are fighting over her, and she's just kind of in the middle. Like Toru is like, she has agency.
So important, yes.
She does things. I don't know. She helps them.
Sorry, your cat is killing me. We should have introduced your cat in the intro, because clearly she wants to be heard.
Put her in the logo. We'll update it.
It's fitting, though, considering one of the main characters is a cat.
It's a cat. I'll accept it.
Actually, it's only because the one that's interrupting is not the one that looks like Kyo.
I know.
But still, at least a cat is being heard to honor Kyo in this series. So I'm sorry, Graham. Go ahead with what you're saying.
Like I was trying to say before my cat interrupted. I was kind of expecting it to be like, oh, Kyo and Yuki are kind of fighting over Toru, and that's just going to be how it is. But it's like, no, Toru has agency. And she does stuff. She's not reactive. She's not purely reactive. She's doing stuff, and she's helping the relationships with these characters and helping them realize things about themselves and reassuring them. And she's a shoulder for them to lean on, for people to open up to.
Well, that's one of the reasons I really appreciate the show, is because the main character, she isn't something that everything's happening to. And I see that a lot, especially in earlier anime, which is why I really appreciated the original, except it didn't go through the whole manga, which is why I'm excited about this one. Anyway, because it's not happening to her. She's happening to them. She is changing these people's lives. Everyone she meets, she changes their lives for the better. And I think that's such a great thematic type of situation that you don't see in a lot of, I guess, earlier animes, because especially with the ones that are targeted for like females, it's, oh, all of this crazy stuff is happening to me. What am I gonna do? Even Sailor Moon. I love Sailor Moon, but like everything's happening to her and she doesn't even have her memory, so there's a whole bunch of stuff. She's like, what's going on? I have to learn all these things, blah, blah, blah. But and another perfect example is Inuyasha too. Everything's happening to her. And it's not until later that she starts kind of being a proactive character. But what I appreciate about this anime is that from the beginning, she's changing lives. She is the turning point for so many people, and she kind of spurs that whole character development that I love so, so much.
One thing that I like that you said was things aren't happening to her, she's happening to them. Because I wasn't really thinking about it that way at first. Like when I had said something earlier, I was thinking it's like, oh, there's a lot of give and take between her and the Soma clan. But when you mentioned it, she's coming in and she's like talking to each and every one of these characters and being a big positive influence. And a lot of that is just, that's who she is she's just a sweet, nice, friendly girl.
She's such a good girl.
And she helps other people see their strengths and helps them look on the bright side.
She helps them be better. She helps them be their better selves. She just strengthens what they already have. And I love it.
Speaking of Inuyasha, it kind of goes back to what we talked about with Kagome in that series, that quiet kind of strength that she had. That, she is, especially Toru. I mean, Kagome, maybe you can make an argument that she's both, but Toru's not a damsel in distress at all. She is the hero. She's the one that's saving everybody rather than looking to them to save her. And she has this just a strength of the heart. I think I'm trying to remember we kind of said in that Inuyasha episode, but that compassion, that strength of the heart. It's not like Kyo and Yuki who just battle each other and do martial arts. It's this strength of compassion. It's this strength of love, kind of innate wisdom of the heart that really is what she brings to the table and is what's so powerful, especially when it's shown to this family.
That's one of my favorite reasons the show exists, is because of that strength that she has. She's the main character, and that's why I've always liked the animes that are like things are changing because of the main character, not the other way around. And I think that's good writing. Like Graham said, the agency that Toru has in this world and with these other characters, even ones that don't necessarily like her, she's just so hard to dislike, that I can really appreciate a story that the main character is changing the lives of others, which is, how it should be. You should always be helping other people and trying to make people their best selves. And I think that's really important because this is such this anime is so powerful on like friendship. It's speaking to friendship a lot in these found families. I think that's part of found family. It's part of family. It's part of any important relationship, is making these people, these connections that you have, making them better, making them their best selves. I guess I'm kind of like Toru in that way, that I don't want to be a burden on anybody. So I'm always trying to help people, even if it means I'm kind of not doing the best for myself. I've always put other people first, and because I want them to be their best selves. I'm always pushing my friends, you should take that class you want to take because it makes you happy, or it's a hobby, but it's your favorite thing. It'll make you happier. Like, I'm always trying to push my friends to be their best selves and to do the things that are going to change their lives for the better. And I think it's important to be that person. Like, everybody doesn't have to be that person, but I think it's nice when you have that person in your life that will support you no matter what, and that, I guess, will always try to encourage you to move forward, even when you don't feel like moving forward or when you feel like you can't.
One thing I just thought of when you're talking about that is when Toru comes into the picture, her presence makes Kyo more connected to the rest of the family than he would have been otherwise. I wish I were with the rest of them, and then it's like he is, but he still doesn't see how he is now. He's a part of that too. This is going back a little bit, but I'm not a huge person for if a character has a lot of agency or not. Like, it doesn't, like, it's not like a make or break situation for me, but in this type of show, it's very good to see Toru as that kind of character with that much agency, since she's kind of coming into this fractured family, I guess, and she's kind of trying to find her place, and she kind of brings all these other people together while she's still trying to find her own place. She's just the glue that holds everyone together.
Yeah, actually, just right before you said that, I was going to say that I think of her as, I guess, if you look at a puzzle piece, she's that center thing that kind of holds everything together and makes it all make sense. Because they're all, without her, they're all missing something, whether it's an emotional strength, whether it's understanding of others, whether it is coming to terms with the loss. There's so many things that multiple characters are missing, and she provides that for them. She provides something different for every single person, and I think that's so powerful. And I think it also shows that everybody has their own weaknesses as well, and she kind of fills those gaps. So she's that thing holding everyone together, and I love that idea.
And she does so naturally, which is,
Yes.
I think, the strength of her. To play this back to kind of real life, that's the more powerful compassion, is when you're naturally doing it. Like you said, not everybody is in a place where they can naturally give as much as Toru can. It's just the cards were dealt in life. But, you know, that's what we kind of strive to get to, I think, is Toru's level of just being, like you said, being able to go through all these tragedies and still being able to just naturally give her kindness, naturally have that empathy, naturally give the love. She's not forcing herself on anybody. She's not outrightly trying to. All she's doing is just showing them empathy. She's just showing them kindness. She's just trying to understand them. And she's just saying, I'm not scared of you. I want to still be your friend. That's all she does. And it comes very naturally to her. And because it's natural and from the heart, it's very effective. And I think that's, like I said, what makes her such a powerful protagonist, because of that natural ability that is exemplified in this show.
I agree. And honestly, I think that's really all I wanted to talk about. When I think about it, like that was the most important thing, was for me, Toru filling the gaps within this family. While she's not literally part of their family, she's what they've all been missing.
Did you have anything to add, Graham?
I think we covered it pretty well.
All right. So I guess that will be another episode done with. So if you want to add to the conversation we just had, or want us to cover another anime, movie, or TV series that, you know, is very near and dear to you, you can always email us at animindpodcast@gmail.com. Next episode, we will be covering Grave of the Fireflies, which I don't think, Danny, that's another one you and I, that'll be new to us, both of us, right?
Yep.
So, Graham, why don't you just give a little bit of a pitch on that one?
You guys missed it since this is audio, but I pretended I was crying heavily on the computer screen in our video call. But just to give a very brief summary, it is about this brother and sister in the very end of World War II era Japan, and them just kind of living in this harsh reality that the war has brought to their country, and just that familial bond and their hardships.
Wow, that's
it's a lot.
dark after what we've just covered. That's going to be our next episode.
We're doing a complete 180 here.
Wow, I hope y'all are prepared for some dark stuff.
Well, I think when we were doing this, I knew generally. That was the general themes of it, although I've not seen it. And I think we were doing the lineup for the season. Graham's like, we can't end on that one. It's too dark.
Yeah.
We have to couch that in between two really good uplifting lines.
All right. Well, I hope y'all are prepared for some crazy stuff next week or in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it is one of the few movies that has made me cry. And I think it
Oh
was the
God, that means I'm gonna sob. No.
And it was the first anime that made me cry, and I think it's been the only one, but still.
Oh, I've got some animes for you, my dude.
All right, so yeah, bring a box of tissues. If you're gonna watch it for the episode, make sure you have some tissues handy. Apparently,
I'm not ready, but I hope everybody else is.
Right. Till then, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me both on Twitch and Instagram at Kittens and Caffeine.
And if you want to find me, you can just find me on Twitter at MadShellfish2.
And then if you want to find me, my writing is on the blog human1nature.blogspot.com, and that's the numeral 1. If you want to check out our parent company, Victims and Villains, you can find them over at victimsandvillains.net. On their website, you can find Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube links. You can also find movie resources, movie reviews, podcasts, such as the one you're currently listening to. And most importantly, you can find the mental health resource library, the extensive mental health resource library that Victims and Villains provides for people who need help with emotional trauma or, are just going through a rough period in life and need to reach out for that help, like Tohru gives that empathy, that emergency empathy. So definitely check that out. For those of you who want to see us nerd out about anime in real time, you can check out our live broadcast, which has been scheduled for April 2nd on Victims and Villains Twitch feed, which is https://m.twitch.tv/victims and villains. We will be discussing the series Attack on Titan as part of Victims and Villains live stream that weekend to promote mental health awareness. We will actually be following the live performance of the audio drama I wrote called Gloom's Death, which is scheduled to start at noon Eastern Standard Time that day. And we'll probably be finishing around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to get a double dose of me, you can tune into Victims and Villains Twitch feed at noon Eastern Standard Time on April 2nd. But if you just want to see Danny, Graham, and I do this anime thing live without a safety net, then tune in around 1 p.m. on April 2nd. That will do it for episode 9 of Animind for this season. Until next time, keep both your mental health and anime on the mind.